Top 10 companies collapsing fast as boycotts of American goods sweep shock. Reasons for 2025. Something unexpected is shaking the foundations of corporate America. Giants that once dominated the market are now crumbling under the weight of public backlash. As boycotts of American goods gain momentum, the ripple effects are being felt everywhere, from your local stores to global supply chains. Could the brands you trust be the next to fall? In a time when consumer choices are driven by values more than ever, even the biggest names are no longer safe. These companies aren't just losing profits, they're losing public trust. And the reasons behind it? Shocking, powerful, and deeply connected to the changing spirit of our society. Is this the end of an era, or the beginning of a transformation in how we relate to the brands we once loved? In this video, we uncover the top 10 companies collapsing fast and the surprising forces pushing them over the edge. We'll also explore bold predictions for 2025 and what they could mean for your future as a consumer. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom, where we seek understanding in a rapidly changing world. Number 1. Target. At the top of the list sits Target, a once widely respected retail giant that built its image on inclusivity and progressive values. But in recent years, a shift in corporate direction has stirred discontent among its most loyal customer base. When Target chose to scale back its DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, the response wasn't just disapproval, it was outrage. This decision sparked a notable 40-day boycott launched during the Lenten season, led in part by Reverend Jamal Bryant, who passionately voiced what many were feeling, that Target had turned its back on black consumers and the communities who once stood by them. As he and others echoed, this is not just about shopping, this is about dignity. In Buddhism, there's a teaching that says, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This impermanence, this constant change, is evident in the dramatic shift Target has faced in public perception. In just a matter of months, its reputational score dropped from 76.9 in April 2023 to 60.9 by December. This wasn't an abstract number, it was a reflection of real people feeling disappointed and let down. And numbers don't lie. Financially, Target saw a 2% decline in revenues in fiscal 2023, a signal that the cost of distancing from key social values can be steep. But beyond the balance sheet lies a deeper truth about community and connection. The black community, whose annual spending power is estimated at over $1.3 trillion, is beginning to reevaluate where and how their money is spent. The message is clear. Economic power is a form of influence, and silence or inconsistency from companies will be met with intentional redirection of that power. As economics professor Trevon Logan insightfully said, the abandonment of DEI commitments is motivating boycotts. It's not just about shopping habits. It's about demanding environments where DEI policies make workplaces safer and more productive. In today's interconnected world, where every decision a company makes can be instantly amplified or scrutinized, this shift serves as a cautionary tale. The Buddhist idea of right intention, part of the Noble Eightfold Path, reminds us to act with compassion and integrity, not just for ourselves, but in all our dealings. Companies, too, are held to that standard, especially when they have long promoted values of equity and inclusion. As individuals navigating a noisy, fast-moving world, We're called to be more mindful not just of where we shop, but of the values we support with our choices. The lesson here isn't about punishing or cancelling. It's about accountability, about encouraging a more humane and just society through collective action. As we reflect on stories like this, let us remember the words of the Dalai Lama. A lack of transparency results in distrust and a deep sense of insecurity. Whether we are business owners, consumers, or simply fellow human beings striving for balance, we all have a role to play in shaping a world where trust, inclusion, and compassion aren't afterthoughts, but foundations. Number 2. Walmart. Let's talk about Walmart, a company that has long been a symbol of American retail success, but is now facing a growing wave of criticism and consumer pushback. You might be asking, how did such a giant end up in the middle of this storm? It starts with a decision that's left many feeling disheartened: Walmart's rollback on diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) initiatives. For many people, DEI isn't just corporate jargon. It's about creating fair opportunities, respecting different backgrounds, and ensuring that workplaces reflect the real diversity of the communities they serve. So when a company as influential as Walmart appears to be stepping away from that commitment, it sends shockwaves across the nation. Advocacy groups have responded swiftly, encouraging people to take action with their wallets and make their voices heard through boycotts. According to a poll by Numerator, Walmart was the top target for such boycotts, with a striking 74% of respondents saying they plan to avoid shopping there. That's not just a protest, it's a major shift in consumer behavior. And here's where it goes even deeper. Walmart has already faced criticism over the years for its treatment of workers. Things like low wages, limited access to benefits, and questions about working conditions. These concerns have now converged with frustrations around social responsibility, forming a perfect storm of dissatisfaction. When people begin to feel that a company no longer stands for fairness, respect, or shared progress, it's not surprising that loyalty starts to fade. So what happens when millions decide to speak not just with their words, but with their spending habits? The People's Union USA has launched what they're calling an economic blackout, a national effort to withhold spending from companies perceived to be abandoning DEI values, particularly in response to recent political shifts. Now you may wonder, can this kind of protest really change anything? The truth is, even if the immediate financial impact seems small, the social and ethical pressure it builds is undeniable. One protester said it best: "These rollbacks aren't just bad business decisions, they're signals of deeper moral erosion." That's a powerful thought. When companies that shape our daily lives appear to turn away from justice and equality, it raises the question, what kind of society are we supporting with our dollars? As someone who cares about the direction our communities are heading, this is where your role becomes meaningful. You, the everyday shopper, have influence. You get to decide what kind of world your purchases help shape. So ask yourself, are the values of inclusion, fairness, and dignity reflected in the places you choose to support? In the words of the Buddha, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. In today's world, that spiritual life often translates into mindfulness, not just in meditation or prayer, but in everyday choices, including how we engage with companies and their values. The lesson here is not about division, but awareness. It's about recognizing your power, staying informed, and choosing with intention. Because when enough people do that, even giants begin to listen. Number 3. Amazon. Let's take a moment to talk about Amazon, a name that's become almost inseparable from modern life. You've probably ordered something from Amazon this month, maybe even this week. It's fast, convenient, and everywhere. But behind the click of a button, there's a growing wave of frustration, and people are starting to speak up. Amazon is now facing backlash not only for its impact on small businesses and how it treats its workers, but also for a decision that hit a nerve: the rollback of its diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, also known as DEI. For many, DEI isn't some optional extra. It's the reflection of a company's values. It's how people feel seen, respected, and safe in their workplace. So when Amazon decided to pull back on these initiatives, it wasn't just a policy change, it felt like a betrayal. This led to a boycott that took place from March 7th to March 14th, 2025, organized by activist groups including the People's Union, whose founder, John Schwartz, described it as a calculated strike. He explained that this was about more than just Amazon. It was about challenging the system that allows a giant to profit while workers suffer. Now, here's the twist. Despite the boycott, Amazon's sales still went up by nearly 6% during that period. On the surface, it might seem like the protests didn't work. But look deeper and you'll see that the true power of the movement lies in the conversation it started. When people talk, ask questions, and open their eyes to what's happening behind the scenes, change begins. And let's be honest, Amazon's record isn't spotless. There are widespread concerns about warehouse workers facing intense pressure, unsafe conditions, and pay that doesn't match the workload. These aren't rumors, they're lived experiences, and it's time we ask, is convenience worth the cost to someone else's well-being? In the Dhammapada, the Buddha teaches, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become. So what are we thinking when we support companies that push aside ethical responsibility for profit? Are we choosing mindfulness, or are we turning a blind eye because it's easier? This is not about guilt, it's about awareness. Personally, I believe that one voice might feel small, but when joined with others, it becomes powerful. The backlash against Amazon is part of a bigger shift, a rising awareness that our spending habits are not just financial decisions, they are ethical statements. People across the country, maybe even people like you, are beginning to ask harder questions. Where does this product come from? Who made it? What kind of company am I supporting with my money? These are the kinds of questions that bring clarity, that cut through the noise. And while no company is perfect, accountability starts with pressure, from the inside and the outside. So here's something to reflect on. What kind of world do we want to support? What values do we want to see in the companies that shape our lives? Because whether we realize it or not, each choice we make is a vote for the kind of future we believe in. And if we believe in fairness, respect, and compassion, not just in our personal lives but in the systems we live under, then our choices, no matter how small, carry the weight of change. If you've watched up to this point, you're already ahead, staying informed about the major shifts shaping our economy. Comment below with Wake Up 2025 to show you're tuned in and ready to adapt to the changes ahead. Don't click away just yet. There's more eye-opening insight coming up that could help you make smarter decisions in a rapidly changing world. Stick around to discover what's next and how it might affect your future. Number 4. Nestlé. Let's turn our attention to Nestlé, one of the biggest names in the global food and beverage industry. So big, in fact, that it's hard to walk through a grocery store without spotting several of its products on the shelves. But lately, this household giant is finding itself in deep waters, as boycotts begin to chip away at its reputation and consumer trust. You may wonder, why are so many people turning away from such a well-known brand? The answer lies in a mix of past controversy and current decisions that many find troubling. In early 2025, Nestlé made the decision to roll back its diversity, equity and inclusion (DDI) policies, a move that sparked strong reactions from consumers who believe these initiatives are essential to creating safe, respectful and diverse workplaces. For a company that operates on a global scale and serves communities of all backgrounds, this rollback felt like a step backward, and that disappointment quickly turned into organized resistance. The boycott, which began on March 21st, has been led by groups like the People's Union USA, who are not only responding to the DEI issue, but also shining a light on Nestlé's deeper history of ethical concerns. For years, Nestlé has faced criticism for sourcing cocoa from farms allegedly using child labor, a claim supported by a 2019 investigation from the Washington Post. And this isn't a distant memory. As recently as December 2024, the company came under renewed scrutiny for alleged labor violations, raising questions about how much progress has really been made. So while the DEI rollback might be the spark, the fire has been building for quite some time, and now it's starting to have real financial consequences. Nestlé's sales in 2024 dropped by 2.5%, landing at 67.1 billion Swiss francs, down from 77.6 billion the year before. Even though the company raised prices by 1.6%, it wasn't enough to balance the decline, especially in North America, where sales fell by 2.6%. That's a telling sign, especially considering that Nestlé isn't just one brand. It owns over 2,000, including names many of us grew up with like Kit Kat, Gerber, and even pet food lines and bottled water. Think about that for a second. How many times have you or your family reached for a chocolate bar, a baby product, or even a frozen meal, not realizing it was all under the same umbrella? The boycott now encourages consumers to stop supporting all of these, which, if it continues, could send shockwaves through Nestlé's massive product portfolio. And while some analysts might argue that boycotts are often short-lived or have limited financial impact, what they undeniably do is create public pressure and force companies to reckon with their values. What's perhaps most unsettling in Nestlé's case is its silence. So far, there's been no clear public response to the boycott, leaving many to wonder, is the company taking this seriously or simply hoping the uproar will fade away? That silence speaks volumes. And it leads us to a bigger question that each of us should consider. What kind of companies do we want to support? Are we choosing products out of habit, or are we paying attention to the values they represent? In the words of the Buddha, what you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create. In this context, what we choose to buy can be a powerful extension of what we believe in. Whether it's standing against child labor, advocating for fair treatment in the workplace, or supporting genuine inclusion, our daily purchases carry weight. So next time you're in the store, take a pause and ask yourself, does this brand reflect my values? Because the world we shape tomorrow begins with the choices we make today. Number 5. Tesla. Let's talk about something that may surprise you. Tesla, the electric car giant that once stood as a beacon of green innovation, is now finding itself in hot water. You've probably heard the name Elon Musk countless times, whether for groundbreaking technology or controversial tweets. But today, the story goes deeper. Tesla, the company that promised a cleaner future, is now grappling with growing backlash that's threatening its foundation. What's driving this shift? A lot of it comes down to public perception, and when perception starts turning sour, the impact can be enormous. Over the past year, Elon Musk's political affiliations, especially his ties to the Trump administration and controversial public statements, have sparked a wave of criticism. Many people feel that supporting policies that reduce environmental safeguards contradicts everything Tesla claims to represent. And when a brand's values no longer align with its actions or its figurehead's behavior, trust begins to erode. That erosion has already turned into action. In countries like Australia and Germany, where eco-conscious values run deep, Tesla has seen sales drop by a staggering 72% and 76% respectively. Those aren't just numbers, they're clear signs that consumers are voting with their wallets. And the message? It's loud and clear. Integrity matters. But the concerns go beyond politics. Inside Tesla, disturbing allegations have surfaced. Reports have emerged about poor working conditions, high injury rates, and even claims of racism and sexual harassment within its factories. These are serious accusations that challenge the company's image of being forward-thinking and ethically driven. So here's a question for you. Can a company truly be considered revolutionary if it neglects the well-being of the people helping to build that revolution? That's a question many consumers and investors are now asking. On top of that, Tesla's decision to involve itself in cryptocurrencies has raised environmental red flags, especially given the high energy consumption associated with digital mining. Even tech communities that once championed Tesla have begun criticizing it for not fully complying with open-source license standards, questioning whether the brand's commitment to transparency and innovation is starting to crack. Financially, the company isn't faring much better. Since December, Tesla's stock has dropped by more than 50%, wiping out over $800 billion in market value. For context, that's more than the entire GDP of some countries. Elon Musk's personal fortune has taken a hit too, although he still holds the title of the world's richest man. However, it's not just about wealth, it's about confidence. According to recent data, 85% of investors believe that Musk's personal conduct is harming the company's future. This brings up another important question. Is it time for Tesla's board to take stronger action to protect the company's mission, even if it means replacing its iconic leader? Some think that change at the top might be necessary to stabilize the company and restore public trust. Because at the end of the day, no matter how innovative a company may be, if it can't align its behavior with its values, it risks losing everything it has worked to build. So what does this all mean for you, and why should you care? Tesla's story is more than just a headline. It's a reflection of the power that values, integrity, and leadership have in shaping a brand's destiny. As consumers, we hold an incredible influence. Where we spend, what we support, and the voices we amplify all contribute to shaping the future we want to see. When a company as large as Tesla can stumble so dramatically because of a misalignment between its message and its actions, it reminds us that authenticity isn't optional, it's essential. So ask yourself, are the brands you support aligned with the world you want to live in? Do their actions reflect their promises? Because when we demand better, not just in products but in principles, we raise the standard for everyone. And maybe, just maybe, that's how real change begins. Number 6. Goya Foods. Let's talk about Goya Foods, yes. That same brand many of us grew up with in our kitchens, the one with the familiar cans of beans and spices that felt like home. For decades, Goya has been more than just a food company. It's been a cultural cornerstone in Hispanic households across America. But something shifted in July 2020 that sent shockwaves through this community. During a White House event, Robert Unanue, the CEO of Goya, made a public statement praising then-President Donald Trump, saying, "We're all truly blessed to have a leader like President Trump who is a builder." Now, depending on your political beliefs, that might not sound controversial, but for many in the Latino community, those words hit like a punch to the gut. Why? Because Trump's administration had become deeply associated with immigration policies that caused pain, fear, and separation for countless Latin American families. And in that moment, many felt a painful disconnect between a brand they had supported for generations and a leadership stance that seemed to ignore their struggles. It wasn't just a PR slip, it was a wound to the heart of the people who helped build Goya into what it is today. You might be wondering, did this boycott really hurt Goya? Well, the answer is layered. At first, something surprising happened. Goya's sales actually jumped by 22% in the 2 weeks after the backlash, thanks to a surge of support from conservative consumers, including Trump supporters, who launched a Buy Goya counter-campaign. But that temporary financial spike couldn't mask the emotional fallout. Many loyal customers felt betrayed, asking, how could a brand that owes its success to Latino communities turn around and applaud policies that hurt them? One former customer even said, "Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Mexicans, we made that company." That kind of emotional break doesn't just fade. The deep connection between people and the brands they support is about more than convenience or price. It's about identity, memory, and trust. Can a company survive after breaking that bond? Here's where it gets interesting. Goya didn't collapse. In fact, they've continued expanding, including investing $80 million to boost production capacity in Texas. So the business is still running strong on paper, but reputation isn't always measured in profit margins. As the Cornell University study suggests, political consumerism, boycotts, and boycotts can create a lot of noise, but they don't always cause lasting financial harm. Still, what they do affect is the soul of a brand, its legacy, and the way it's remembered by the very people who gave it meaning. It brings up a powerful question for all of us: what matters more, short-term gains or long-term trust? In Buddhism, there's a saying, words have the power to both destroy and heal. When words are both true and kind, they can change the world. Goya's story is a perfect example of this wisdom. One statement, even if well-intentioned, can unravel years of trust when it fails to honor the people who carried you. As a storyteller, I can't help but reflect, what does this teach us about leadership, responsibility, and the voices we choose to uplift? How do we balance personal beliefs with collective impact, especially when we stand on the shoulders of a community? This isn't just a corporate story, it's a human one. Whether you're leading a company, raising a family, or just deciding what to buy at the grocery store, your choices echo further than you think. So maybe the real question isn't just whether Goya will regain trust, but whether we as individuals are paying attention to the stories we support with our dollars, our voices, and our values. Because in a world where everything moves fast, it's easy to forget every decision we make is a form of participation. And that's a kind of power worth using wisely. Still watching. That means you know how important it is to stay informed in these unpredictable times. Type Truth Seeker 2025 in the comments to join others who are questioning the system and thinking critically. The most surprising revelations are still to come. Stay with us to the end and get the full picture. Number 7. Pizza Hut. Let's take a closer look at Pizza Hut. A brand many of us grew up with, sharing slices at birthday parties, family nights, or casual weekends. But today, this once dominant pizza chain finds itself in the middle of controversies that go far beyond lukewarm crusts or delay. At the heart of the outrage is an incident that struck a deep emotional chord, a promotional ad that appeared to mock Palestinian prisoners on a hunger strike. The image, digitally altered to show a prisoner enjoying Pizza Hut inside his jail cell, wasn't just seen as poor taste, it was perceived as dehumanizing and deeply offensive. The backlash was swift and fierce, with the hashtag Boycott Pizza Hut gaining traction globally, particularly among communities sensitive to the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Organizations like the BDS movement condemned the ad, arguing it showed a lack of empathy and understanding for a very real humanitarian crisis. And when you're a global brand, such missteps aren't local, they ripple across continents. What made matters worse was the release of images on Pizza Hut Israel's social media account, showing the company delivering free pizzas to Israeli Defense Forces soldiers. While supporters may have viewed this as a morale-boosting gesture, others saw it as a clear political stance, particularly in a region where neutrality is hard to come by, and every action is viewed through the lens of a decades-long struggle. It brings to mind the words of Thich Nhat Hanh: "When you plant lettuce, if it does not grow well, you don't blame the lettuce, you look for reasons it is not doing well." Perhaps Pizza Hut, instead of defending its actions, should have paused and reflected on how its choices were perceived by the wider world. But controversies aren't the only hurdle Pizza Hut is facing. Long before these issues emerged, the brand had been quietly losing ground in the competitive world of fast food. While rivals like Domino's and Papa John's rushed to modernize with sleek mobile apps, real-time delivery tracking, and AI-enhanced customer service, Pizza Hut seemed to rest on its nostalgic legacy. Unfortunately, in a digital age where convenience often trumps brand loyalty, this lack of innovation became a liability. Customers began to notice that the value no longer matched the price. Complaints about declining food quality and outdated service started stacking up, and when trust erodes from both ethical and consumer angles, a brand's foundation begins to crumble, and the financial figures reflect this unease. In the UK, Pizza Hut's future was hanging by a thread until the brand was sold out of insolvency to a Scandinavian partner. Even then, questions remain. Can new ownership breathe life back into a brand that's lost its way? So, what lessons does Pizza Hut's story offer you and me? It reminds us of the profound impact that both intention and perception carry. In business and in life, neutrality can sometimes be the hardest stance to maintain, especially when your actions unintentionally speak louder than your silence. As consumers, we wield a quiet power with our choices. Every dollar spent is a vote for the values we believe in, and as people who lead, manage, or influence others, whether in a company or a community, we're reminded that empathy, adaptability, and cultural awareness aren't just nice-to-have qualities, they're essential. Pizza Hut's journey teaches us that even beloved institutions can falter if they lose sight of the world around them and, more importantly, the people they serve. So ask yourself, in your own life or your work, are you listening deeply to those around you? Are your actions aligning with your values? As the Buddha once said, just as a flower does not pick and choose the bees that come to it, we must open ourselves to all with compassion and care. Because in the end, whether you're serving pizza or purpose, what truly nourishes people is not just what's on the plate, but how you make them feel. Number 8. Papa John's. Let's talk about Papa John's. Yes, the pizza chain you've probably ordered from at least once for a quick dinner or game night. But today it's not the cheesy crusts making headlines, it's a growing list of controversies that are threatening to bring this once prominent brand to its knees. Over the past few years, Papa John's has been caught in the middle of both global political tensions and internal company crises, creating a perfect storm that's been nearly impossible to escape. One of the most impactful moments came when the company was accused of donating meals to the Israeli military, a move that landed them squarely on the BDS movement's boycott list. For those unfamiliar, BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, a campaign that seeks to apply pressure on companies seen as supporting Israel's policies toward Palestinians. Being added to that list is more than just a PR blunder. It's a clear message to millions of consumers worldwide that the brand may not be aligned with their values. This is where modern business meets moral complexity. In an interconnected world, every gesture, partnership or donation can be interpreted through the lens of international ethics. So let me ask you, how should a company act when its business decisions cross paths with human rights and political sensitivities? But the problems don't stop there. Papa John's has also been facing serious challenges from within. A major blow came when the company's founder, John Schnatter, was caught using a racial slur during a corporate conference call. That moment not only cost him his role as CEO and spokesperson, but also opened a floodgate of outrage. In an era when companies are expected to take strong stances against racism and injustice, this incident struck a nerve with customers and advocacy groups alike. The brand's image, once carefully crafted around family values and pizza night fun, suddenly became a symbol of something far more problematic. And as the old saying goes, trust arrives on foot, but leaves on horseback. The damage to Papa John's reputation was swift and deep. Its stock value plunged, losing nearly half its worth, and confidence among both consumers and investors took a hit that it has yet to fully recover from. Now, if we shift to the financial side, the storm clouds don't clear. Papa John's fourth quarter earnings report for 2024 revealed a troubling 4% decline in comparable sales in the USA market they heavily rely on. And the picture worsens when you look at their operating income, which dropped by a staggering 30% from the previous year. That's not just a small dip, it's a financial freefall. Add to that the economic strain of inflation, with everyday people cutting back on non-essential spending like takeout and delivery, and you've got a situation that's difficult to slice up and spin as hopeful. It raises a critical question not just for Papa John's, but for any brand trying to survive today. Is financial success sustainable without social responsibility and leadership accountability? Or, as the Buddha once said, a man is not called wise because he talks and talks again, but if he is peaceful, loving, and fearless, then he is in truth called wise. A company, like a person, must walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So what can we learn from this? First, leadership matters. What a single person says or does can shape or shatter the identity of an entire organization. Second, today's consumers care deeply about where their money goes. People want more than just a product. They want alignment with values, purpose, and respect. Lastly, every business, big or small, is now part of a global conversation, and silence or missteps can speak volumes. If you're leading a business or even just thinking about where you spend your money, ask yourself, does this brand reflect the world I want to live in? Because in the end, the real value isn't just in the pizza, it's in the principles behind the brand. Number 9. Burger King. Let's take a moment to talk about Burger King, a name you've probably heard since childhood, maybe even a place you grabbed lunch from just last week. But behind the flame-grilled image and catchy slogans lies a growing storm of criticism that's putting this fast food giant under real pressure. Burger King is no stranger to controversy, and while the current boycott movement surrounding the brand hasn't been fully outlined in the headlines yet, its deeper, ongoing issues are impossible to ignore. First and foremost is the environmental concern, something that affects all of us, whether we eat fast food or not. As one of the largest burger chains in the world, Burger King has been heavily criticized for its contribution to deforestation and greenhouse gas emissions, largely due to the beef it sources. Activists and environmental groups have called for boycotts, urging the company to reduce its reliance on beef or at the very least source it more responsibly. The uncomfortable truth is that our taste for convenience is coming at a cost to the planet. And the question is, are companies like Burger King willing to shift their practices before it's too late? Or will they continue to prioritize short-term profit over long-term sustainability? As the Buddha wisely said, what we think we become, what we sow we reap, what we eat we are. It's a gentle reminder that our actions, corporate or personal, have rippling effects far beyond what we first see. But environmental issues aren't the only challenge Burger King is dealing with. Labor disputes have also been simmering beneath the surface. Over the years, employees have spoken out about poor working conditions, low wages, and a lack of support from management. Workers in various locations have protested, joined union efforts, and used their voices to demand dignity in the workplace. These aren't just isolated incidents, they represent a larger movement of people who are no longer willing to accept being undervalued. And that makes me wonder, how can a brand truly thrive if the very people keeping it running are not being treated fairly? At its core, this is a question of ethics versus economics. Can companies like Burger King balance making money with making meaningful change? Or will they keep ignoring the voices that matter most until those voices become too loud to silence? Financially, Burger King has had its fair share of ups and downs. In an industry that moves fast and is fiercely competitive, bad press doesn't just hurt feelings, it hurts sales. When public trust wavers, loyalty fades. More consumers today want to know not just what they're eating, but how it's made and who is affected in the process. And that shift in consumer awareness is powerful. It means that companies must now be accountable in ways they weren't decades ago. Transparency, sustainability, and fairness are no longer buzzwords, they're expectations. So the question is Burger King paying attention to this change, or are they still stuck in an old model that no longer fits? For all of us listening, there's a valuable lesson here. Whether you're running a business, working within one, or just choosing where to spend your money, your actions speak. Our choices shape the market. When we support brands that align with our values, brands that respect the earth, honor workers, and take responsibility, we help create a better future. The Buddha taught that there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. Likewise, There's no shortcut to trust or integrity in business. It must be built choice by choice, meal by meal, step by step. So the next time you walk past a Burger King or any big brand, maybe pause and ask yourself, what kind of world do I want my dollars to support? Because real change doesn't come from slogans. It comes from each of us deciding that values matter just as much as value meals. Number 10. McDonald's. Let's turn our attention to McDonald's. The global fast food powerhouse, recognized by its iconic golden arches, a brand that's become almost synonymous with convenience, comfort, and modern urban life. For many people across generations, McDonald's is more than just a place to grab a burger. It's a symbol of familiarity, of quick stops on long road trips, and weekend treats with family. But beneath that cheerful image, the company has recently found itself in the middle of one of the most significant controversies it has faced in years, and the ripple effects are still unfolding. In October 2023, McDonald's Israel made a highly controversial decision to provide free meals to Israeli soldiers during the Israel-Hamas conflict. While some viewed this as an act of local support, the move quickly became a flashpoint for outrage on the global stage, especially among pro-Palestinian groups and within the broader Muslim world. The Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions (BDS) movement, which seeks to exert pressure on companies viewed as complicit in Israel's military actions, called for an intensification of the boycott against McDonald's until the brand severed ties with its Israeli franchisee. This wasn't just an online trend, it became a wave of real-world consequences. The backlash was sharp and immediate, particularly in countries like Malaysia, Kuwait, Pakistan, and even in regions like Indonesia and parts of Europe such as France, where consumers began to associate McDonald's presence with a political stance they found unacceptable. This incident exposed one of the great challenges of running a multinational franchise. What happens in one region doesn't stay there. Every action, especially in a time of global digital awareness, can have repercussions across borders. Financially, McDonald's felt the pain. Reports confirmed slumping sales throughout the Middle East and other key markets. In response, the company took the significant step of announcing it would buy back all its Israeli franchise locations by April 2024, a move largely seen as damage control and a signal to the international community that the corporation was attempting to regain consistency in its global brand values. Yet even this measure couldn't fully stop the bleeding. By mid-2024, the company had reportedly lost over $7 billion in revenue, and its stock price reflected the broader erosion of public trust. McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczinski described the controversy as disheartening, and while he pointed to misinformation playing a role in the backlash, the broader takeaway is that today's global consumers are more alert, connected, and value-driven than ever before. But this recent controversy is only part of a bigger conversation. Long before this, McDonald's had been under scrutiny for a variety of reasons, from health concerns surrounding its food to questions about how it treats its workers, as well as the environmental toll of its operations. All of these issues have existed in the background for years, but the current political controversy has pushed them back into the spotlight with more urgency than ever. And so we have to ask, in a world where every choice a corporation makes is examined, discussed, and sometimes condemned in real time, how can brands like McDonald's protect both their business interests and their integrity? What kind of leadership does it take to navigate these complex moral and economic waters? As someone who's seen how powerful public opinion can be, I believe this moment is a reminder for all of us, business leaders, consumers, and communities alike, that reputation isn't just built on advertising, but on action. As the Buddha once said, just as a candle cannot burn without fire, men cannot live without a spiritual life. And in this case, perhaps companies too cannot thrive without a clear ethical foundation. For those of us who support or critique these brands, the lesson is clear. What we buy, where we eat, and how we engage with the world reflects what we value. So ask yourself, do the companies you support align with the world you want to help build? Because now, more than ever, even a simple meal can carry a much deeper meaning. As we've seen, even the biggest brands are not immune to the power of public awareness and ethical accountability. In a world where consumer values are shifting faster than ever, what we support with our wallets speaks just as loudly as our words. The stories we shared today aren't just about collapsing companies. They're about a rising consciousness, about people choosing integrity, inclusion, and compassion over convenience. And maybe, just maybe, this is how real change begins. If this video sparked some new thoughts or helped you see things differently, please give it a like, share it with others who care, and don't forget to subscribe to the Journey of Wisdom. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the forces shaping our world. Until next time, stay mindful, stay informed, and as always, walk the path with wisdom.